everyone. Welcome to the Your Love Rara podcast. My name is Emmah, and today I have our first ever guest on the podcast, a very special guest. We've got Townsley with me today. Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Emmah?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for agreeing to chat to me.
That's okay.
So we're going to just chat all about you. You are a co-founder of Make Minds Matter in Aberdeen. Yeah. Which is super duper cool. So I just wanted to ask you, first of all, for the people at home who don't know what Make Minds Matter is, what it is, how you got involved, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. So Make Minds Matter is a charitable organisation which is focused on creating connections between people in need for mental health issues and local organisations, charities, businesses that support mental health. So what we wanted to do was take organisations like yourselves and say, you know, these guys are doing fantastic things in terms of a particular type of mental health concern. We're going to highlight that, and we're going to let people interact with them and connect with them to get the right type of support. So that's what Make Minds Matter is about. It's about sort of highlighting the good in the community and creating a connection between both the people and the right types of organisations and charities that are doing these great things in the community, because there's lots of good ones out there, lots of good people like you guys doing lots of cool, innovative things that people are not aware about. So we try and connect them with, you know, bigger organisations and try and create that relationship between them. The reason I got into it, so I own my own business, Omniscient Safety Innovation. So we provide workplace mental health preventative solutions. So we work with some of these organisations to design systemic approaches that reduce the likelihood of someone ever experiencing mental ill health. So instead of sort of applying care after the event, we work with businesses to get better to reduce the likelihood. So we were doing that already, and while I was doing that, I was interacting with, again, lots of great organisations like yourselves that were doing all these cool things, and I said, I don't know about half of these places, so we decided to start Make Minds Matter to create that community vibe and help to bring them together. So it kind of fell off the back of what we were already doing with the business.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's really important, I think, what you said about kind of starting before, you know, mental health is diminished, you know, rather than taking action, rather than just reacting to anything that is going on. So how can we support mental health in the workplace? How have you kind of gone about that and helped people to make that change?
Okay, so good question. I think part of the difficulty that we're having around mental health is the language. You know, we use particular types of language, and it dictates where we think or helps to confuse what we're talking about. So, as you rightly said, supporting mental health. So some of the things that you can do in terms of supporting mental health are all the good things that go on, you know, the conversations, the breaking the stigma. If you're experiencing an issue, speak to someone. But actually, prevention of workplace mental health issues is different, right? Because what you want to do is you want to identify the types of things that cause harm, and then you want to have solutions in place that stop those things from ever happening, or if they do happen, reduce the likelihood of them impacting on someone, and therefore reducing the likelihood of you needing to treat or support mental health afterwards. So it's in and around how we use language. When I say to a business, how do you want to support mental health? It's very easy for a business to say, well, we want our staff to talk to each other, and we want to create mental health first aiding. So if somebody's experiencing an illness, they can get support. That's supporting it, absolutely, but it's not preventing or reducing it. And that's sometimes where the line gets confused. And that's where OSI, my business, steps in and actually helps to design these solutions that are up front before we get into reactive.
Yeah, and kind of at what point did you decide that you really wanted to focus on mental health as part of your career and helping the community? Did you notice kind of mental health being an issue in Aberdeen especially, or you know, did you just take an interest in mental health?
So I'm ex-armed forces originally. So my background is the armed forces and then oil and gas industry when I came back to Aberdeen. So I've seen mental health impacts from both sides of the coin. I've seen it in terms of guys and girls within the armed forces are coming back from deployments who experience mental health impacts and then end up in either dark places in terms of depression, anxiety, or PTSD. And in worst cases, some colleagues and friends have taken their own lives. So I've seen it from that side. And then I've also seen it in the workspace, primarily here in Aberdeen in the oil and gas industry, right? Because when I came back to Aberdeen, that was a business I got into as a safety professional. But what I found was when we talk about safety, we have a perception of what that means in terms of physical safety. So when I speak about harm in the workplace, in general, most people will automatically think of physical harm. I'm going to bump my head, I'm going to trip over something, I'm going to cut my finger, I'm going to break my leg. Physical harm, and our mindset takes us there. So automatically we jump to how do we prevent, how do we reduce? But when we talk about harm, harm takes its shape in all sorts of forms and guises. So environmental through to emotional and mental health harm. The way that we approach it is very generally focused on physical. So I saw a lot of this in the oil and gas industry. Time, effort, attention, and money invested in preventing somebody getting physically hurt. Meanwhile, lots of people were getting mental health injuries or getting emotionally hurt. And again, it's part of my job within the oil and gas industry was to look at safety and the prevention of all harm. And I found that quite difficult in terms of the acceptance around harm doesn't need to simply be physical. So I saw the impacts on lots of people I worked with, lots of people long-term off work, lots of people impacted by excessive pressures at work. And yeah, I just thought, it doesn't have to be this way, and it shouldn't be this way. There is a legal obligation to not allow it to be that way. So, I formed a business, the clear intent to change how we approach mental health or mental health harm at work. We developed software systems. So we have technology systems that help businesses be smarter at this. And we also have consultancy services to help businesses educate, grow, develop, and become a little bit more creative in and around our preventative solutions. But that's really why I was drawn into it.
Yeah, and have you noticed kind of in the last few years that attitude about mental health changing within, especially the oil and gas industry?
So I think, again, I think there's a fine line between talking about it more freely, but actually actioning it. So in the last couple of years, we have seen a significant change in the way we talk about mental health. It's become far more of an open subject, and you see many more businesses now say things like, you guys talk to each other, we care about you. So mental health is important, to talk to one another. But we're still not at the stage where we're saying, well, actually, mental health is important, and we as an organization have an obligation to keep you safe from harm. So if we're causing or creating mental health impacts in the workspace, we will do something about that. We will prevent it from impacting you. So I think the language is changing. I think we're becoming more open to discussion around it, but we're still not at the point where we have progressed far enough along to say, here's what we will do, here's the action that we'll take from this, and this will become the norm.
Yeah. And you've spoken a little bit about, breaking the stigma around mental health, which I think it is kind of improving now a lot more. But, is there anything more that we can do as a community, as citizens, to break that stigma around mental health?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So with every situation, if we only ever talk about the situation and we don't action the intelligence in the situation, nothing changes, right? Because I can repeat the same conversation with you 60, 70, 100, 250 times. But if we never take any action from the conversation to say that's what we'll do with it going forward, we just repeat the same conversation. So mental health awareness is key, and we need to talk about it. That's fantastic. But now we're at the stage where we need to action it. If I, as someone who sees change in the workplace due to conversation around mental health, I'm going to be far more likely to come forward and speak about mental health again if I see change that reflects it. If it stays the same and it's always, Brett, have another conversation about mental health, the likelihood of me continuing to talk about it diminishes, right? Because there's no benefit to it. There's no value, there's no action on the other side of it. So again, the best way to really move beyond where we're at in terms of stigma is we're talking about it, what we're going to do about what we talked about. Where's the action to follow through and the change that reflects the conversation? I think until we get that right, we're going to remain simply talking about mental health.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think now, like, we've had so many conversations about mental health, it's now about, what can we do, especially after the past year and a half, where I think mental health is so much more important than ever. It's all fine and well to be talking about it, but it is, what are we actually doing to, help everyone with their mental health? Because everyone has suffered a little bit over the past year and a half with their mental health.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. It's time to put up or shut up, right? It's time to step up and do something. Prime Minister's just announced a new social media harms bill. So there will be consequences associated with failing to protect people from social media harm. There is already legislation and law that says you can't hurt people in the workplace. So let's see the consequences in action that flow from that. So yeah, I agree completely.
Yeah. And what are your goals and aims for, your own company and Make Minds Matter? What are your plans for the future?
So I guess the the best answer to that is I have a 4-year-old daughter, and my intention is to change the work environment so that, like you, because I imagine, Emma, you're not yet working just yet, even though you're not out on the factory floor just yet. So
not just yet.
so I want to make it a safe place for you, and I want to make it a safe place for my little girl. So nobody has the right, the privilege, the allowance to create harm in terms of workplace harm for emotional or mental health issues. So I want to ensure that by the time you get into the workspace, and by the time my little girl gets into the workspace and does whatever it is she chooses to do, that she's protected. There is not only the legislation and law and the moral duty to protect her, but there are all the systems and supports and solutions that do that. And what we do by doing that is we make it a safer place, happier place for all of you, and you get to live out your lives without experiencing depression or mental health issues. And so that's the goal for me in terms of the business. And I think in terms of Make Minds Matter, our sort of next 12-month plans are to partner with an organisation to help really drive home that message and create a real community feel around what is mental health within Aberdeen. And as I mentioned, there's lots of great people and great organisations like yourself out there doing these innovative, clever things, and we need to promote that. We need to get you guys in front of the right kind of people to help elevate what you do and get you the right type of support to make what you're doing successful as well. So that's the purpose and goals behind both the business and Make Minds Matter.
Yeah, that's a lovely answer about your daughter. That's so lovely.
Oh, thank you.
And finally, because you speak a lot about mental health, you're dealing a lot with other people's mental health. How do you take care of your own mental health in all those little ways?
So the first thing, I educate myself. I'm now much more aware of the types of things that can create issues for me. So I'm ever present to the potential of harm from these types of things, which makes me more, I guess, intelligent towards how to protect myself. And then when I do feel an impact, when I do feel something weighing down on my mental health, I've got a variety of tools and techniques to kind of recreate the balance. And I think, it's very easy. You mentioned what we've all gone through in the last 14, 16 months, whatever it's been. It's very easy to over-consume negativity at the moment, to continuously soak up through social media or just media in general, and trapped and isolated and all of these different elements to kind of lose all of our good coping mechanisms. They start to fall by the wayside when you're impacted, because naturally you want to just kind of isolate yourself and protect yourself and stop doing all those healthy things. So again, being able to see that and say, well, actually my healthy coping things, my healthy coping structures are falling away and they're being replaced with unhealthy things, overeating perhaps, or maybe consuming too many beers on a Friday night, or these types of things start to creep in. But you can balance it. So if you understand it, if you're educated about it, and you can see it in yourself, then you can be more present in how to balance off what are the good things you can do for your mental health versus perhaps the more negative things. And that's one of the ways that I do it. I think the other thing I do is I'm very appreciative of what I've got. As I said before, I have a business that I'm passionate about. I have a charitable organisation that I'm passionate about. I work with good people. The people I work with are people that I would associate with. They're the type of people who help to drive innovation forward. And then also, I've got my family, and I appreciate having my family in the moments that I can get to spend with them.
Amazing. So thank you so much for talking to me. It's been a wonderful conversation. And everyone, make sure you check out Make Minds Matter. You guys have Facebook and social media and stuff.
We do indeed, yes. We're on Facebook, Twitter, social media, LinkedIn, and Omniscient Safety Innovations is on LinkedIn and Twitter and such as well.
Yeah, so check Brett out on all of the social media that he's a part of, because he does a lot of great work for mental health within Aberdeen and our community. Thank you so much for speaking to me today.
No problem, it's my pleasure.
Thank you. There we go.